Even a couple years into my career, my relationship with data and numbers. So, like many of us in marketing, or many of us who started a business, a lot of us start businesses with this creative spark. And now I know there is a whole set of us that is very data driven, and maybe we've built a tech product and we're very kind of metric focused. I'm talking to all of you that do not connect with that. Does looking at the numbers and the metrics in your business make your hands start to sweat? Don't worry, you are not alone. I have struggled for years to get a handle on the data and metrics for my own business and also for clients. And I'm going to walk you today through my hero's journey from basically crying in the bathroom before my um, meetings with my key stakeholders that I was working for, to stepping confidently into data meetings and talking with investors, because it has been quite a journey. So if you've struggled with kind of wrapping your head around the metrics and the data and the numbers in your business, this episode is for you. So, hi, I'm Victoria Hajar, the host of this podcast, the Scalable Marketing Machine podcast. I'm a 15 plus year veteran marketing director. I've worked all over the world, from China to Mexico to Dubai to the UK to here in the US. And I've built lean ROI driven marketing teams and have worked with incredible founders that have created 7, 8, 9-figure businesses. So I dish all the lessons that I've learned, and what I also like to refer to as my trial by fire, as becoming an excellent marketing director and chief marketing officer, teaching you all that you need to know about marketing your business. So let's get to it, because I want to talk a little bit about where I was in the beginning of my career. And, even a couple years into my career, my relationship with data and numbers. So, like many of us in marketing, or many of us who started a business, a lot of us start businesses with this creative spark. And now I know there is a whole set of us that is very data driven, and maybe we've built a tech product and we're very kind of metric focused. I'm talking to all of you that do not connect with that you started your business or you started in marketing because of your love of brand, because of your desire to have a creative outlet to build something of your own. Because many times, whether you're a marketer or a founder, you're going to be building and working on your business or in the marketing that you're doing, and you're going to hit a wall. And that wall is going to be where all of the performance marketing and your sales really meet that creative piece of your business. And that was my journey, at least. I started my marketing career as an event planner. That was sort of like my entry to marketing. And it was about a bajillion years ago. I started doing event planning for a hotel in Shanghai, where I was living at the time. That's where I started my marketing career. And I started working for a boutique hotel, and linked up with two hospitality developers, and worked directly with these founders and their investor to create amazing brands and build projects from the ground up. But I first started working with them as an event planner, and I had never really done anything in terms of marketing. I went to university, I studied literature, and then I started working for a television network, which was A&E, the history and channel, and anyway. So I was working for a network, and when I moved to China, I knew I wanted to start my own thing, and event planning just seemed like a very easy way to start doing my own thing. And so that's how I got into entrepreneurship, through event planning. And so I started event planning for these hospitality developers to run some events at their hotel, and then got a job in marketing and worked up the ranks over about 5 years, from an event planner consultant, like freelancer, to basically a marketing assistant, to a marketing manager, and eventually a marketing director at a very young age in a foreign land. But if you've ever lived abroad, sometimes you get kind of interesting opportunities very quickly, just from network and depending on who you're working with, right? But my point in sharing that with you is because I didn't get my MBA. I didn't have an MBA. I had never worked in marketing before. And my point of entry was working with founders. And I've always worked directly with founders and investors in growth startups and scale ups. And the great thing about that is it's been very high pace, it was very exciting. But what it also has meant is that there's been at times like very high expectations of me without anyone holding my hand and teaching me how things should be. And what's even more so is when I started marketing in like, oh God, this was like talking about like 2000, like 9, 10. It's like a long time ago. But like digital marketing, of course, like has changed the trajectory of business like so much, right? And what that practically has meant is over these, you know, I don't know, decade plus, we've been able to see just how much data is available to us. And the average marketer that maybe used to be more focused on brand awareness and just sort of making sure that communications is aligned and makes, and that, omni-channel presence is consistent, all those things. Now we've been, all of us, like all marketers and of course founders, we've had to become like almost data experts, and expected to be, right? Because we have to know our numbers. We have to know, what's working, not working. We need to understand ROI. We need to be able to tie everything back to dollar spent. I think that's changing now just with how our buying behaviors are. But, for the past 10 years, it's really been so focused on everything being tied back to ROI when it comes to marketing. And so I can recall, having to present, P&Ls at some point way before I was ready. Having to, create and present marketing scorecards, not only to a boss, because oftentimes I didn't have a boss. My boss was the founder, the owner, or I was reporting directly to investors. And let me tell you, if you're a gal that doesn't feel comfortable with numbers and you have to talk to an investor, it may be the most scariest situation you could be in. And I share all this with you because I feel like I can show up so confidently now, creating scorecards and presenting the data and walking founders through their data and making data driven decisions. But it's taken me years to get there. And this is something that I don't think a lot of people talk about. And yes, there's like cultural and systemic issues with women and STEAM and all of that stuff, right? Math and science, and traditionally what has been encouraged for girls versus boys. But I've had men and women that I've worked with before, founders that are just not comfortable with data and numbers and things like that. I've seen it on both sides. But I can recall very clearly, like, just hands sweaty, shaking going into these meetings, getting yelled at for not understanding acronyms for data and all this stuff. And that's how I've learned what I know now. I will never ever forget my first time working for a SaaS company, which will go unnamed. And I was running marketing for them, and I had never heard of this term CAC, payback period. And CAC is client acquisition cost, and payback period refers to like how long it takes for you to get your money paid back from how much it costs to acquire the client. I just did never come across this terminology before because I had not worked in SaaS. And it's a very, if you're on a subscription model or in a SaaS model, like that's a very common metric, but I had no idea. And I remember getting reamed out by the founder I was working with in front of everyone in the organization because I didn't know this terminology. And this is, again, like things that I do not wish upon anyone else, which is why I'm so passionate about teaching, especially us female founders, right, on how to get comfortable with the data. Because often it's not as hard as it appears, but I think that the acronyms are quite difficult. And what's even trickier here, which I don't think a lot of people talk about, is there's a lot of acronyms, especially in marketing, that there's different letters, like they're different acronyms, but they mean the same thing. Like a very good example is, the ICA, your ideal client avatar, or I've also heard it referred to as, your okay, ICA is the only one that's coming to me, but it's like your target client or whatever. The point being is that I've heard several acronyms for the same term. And so what the result is, and this is what I had in my own business, was just like this aversion to looking at the data at all. And or I would like haphazardly put together a Google sheet and then just never look at it. And the reason I wasn't looking at it was because I was two things. I was ashamed that the numbers weren't like reaching these lofty kind of targets that I wanted to reach. But because I didn't spend the time to get intimate and understand the formulas behind each metric and why they mattered, like I could look at the formula and I could see, okay, this times this equals this, or this divided by this equals this. But it wasn't until I had repeated exposure to the metrics and forced myself with clients and in my own business to have to look at that data every single week. And I feel like I'm a little bit remedial, to be honest, but like it took me years to really understand in a deep way what all of those metrics meant. And so in this episode, I don't want to walk you through the laundry list of like CAC to LTV ratio and all of these important things. I have other episodes that break down the most important actual metrics you should be tracking for your marketing, for your business. But what I want to talk about now is, what can you do in even the smallest, tiniest way to start getting comfortable with the data? Because one of the best habits that you can implement in your business is creating a scorecard for yourself. And this could be a marketing scorecard, or this could be like a CEO dashboard. There's a lot of different consultants and teachers and mentors and whatever that conceptualize this idea differently. But sitting down every single week and looking at some key numbers is so critical for you sort of gaining a different level understanding on how your business works. So if I were to say 3 metrics that you should be looking at in your business every single week, and I don't think it's revenue. So, and it depends where you are in your business, but I know when I first started out, I had these like very lofty revenue goals for myself, how many sales calls I'm going to do and how am I going to convert them and all of those things. But I feel like when you're first starting out and you're first starting to track all these numbers, I think that it's really key to get a deep handle on your leading metrics. So if we could, let us for a moment categorize metrics in like 2 different camps. There's leading metrics and lagging metrics. And a lagging metric is more like a result. So a revenue would represent a result. And the thing with revenue is that if you look at this revenue number and it's not where you want it to be, that actual number doesn't give you a ton of information on something that you can do to improve that metric, right? It's simply just telling you sort of the end of the story. A leading metric is going to give you a little bit more information of what happens or what needs to be true in order for that lagging metric to exist. So a leading metric could look like how many people download your lead magnet each week, right? That has something that comes before that as well. Let's look at how many impressions your social media posts are getting, right? So if you kind of pull it back to revenue, but then you kind of say, all right, what happens before revenue? Well, I need a new lead. Like I need someone to even know my business exists and maybe check out some of my offerings, right? So looking at that lead number is really good, but there's something that happens even before that. So let's say that in order to get those leads, you're creating really great dynamic organic content and offering your lead magnet in that organic content. Well, if you start paying attention to the results of that organic content, well, then that gives you something that's a little bit more actionable, right? So if you look at the impressions of your content or the likes, the shares, like the engagement on a particular post, that's going to give you some signals on what kind of content and information or what types of posts is resonating with your community online, and that's going to help to determine what more content you create or how you can improve the content that you're doing. And yes, it's kind of like a lot of steps away, but it's the beginning of the journey, right? Because nowadays, if you create great content that goes viral, you're going to be able to get in front of a lot of different people, and those people are going to know about your business. And then ones that are interested will download your free resource or your lead magnet and then get into your world. So if I'm starting out and I'm not running ads, right, and I'm not running a partnership strategy or an affiliate strategy, it's just like me, social media, and I'm trying to get leads and sales into my business, I would look at that post performance. So looking really at impressions of your content and using that, studying that to really signal what's working and what's not working in that awareness phase. Again, content done right, social done right will get you in front of new audience, but it takes intentionality, right? So I would look at impressions, right? I'd be watching out for follower growth. I think that's always nice to have a target for and to keep an eye on. And then leads, right? Because you're really thinking, how many email addresses can I be getting into my world? Because the more your email list grows, ultimately more sales are going to be made either through people booking a sales call with you if you're like a service-based business, or people looking at your website and getting to your sales page for your product page and buying with you, right? But again, there's a lot of like founders that I've worked with that have data Google Sheets that are 18 pages long. And it's great in a sense, I think, when you feel very comfortable. I personally like having more data because it tells me more of a story. But I didn't start out that way, right? So these couple three sort of metrics, right? Impressions on posts, how your lead list is growing, and then how many sales you made, tracking those three things is enough to get started. Because if you look at that each and every week and there's no movement, right? That like your post impressions are crappy, no one's downloading your free resource and you're not making any money, it's easy to just not look at that and just keep plugging along and be like, I'm just going to mindlessly keep doing content and someday something will change. Well, that's not the world we live in, right? If what we need to do is we need to be really paying attention to all of the stuff that we're executing. And a lot of our strategies of the founders in my community there is this organic social media, right? Because it's essentially free, right? You could do it yourself, right? So if we're really trying to utilize organic social media, then we need to be paying attention to creating content that moves people into action. And we're not going to have a pulse on that unless we look at what is happening with our organic social content and seeing if it's actually inspiring people to download that free resource, right? Or your content could be driving people to your profile page, and then that's where you have a lead magnet link. But we need to understand what's working and what's not working in order to do better. And here's like another trick that I've learned through all the businesses that I've worked with is, there's going to be a point looking at this content where you're going to have to level up in order to get the results that you want. And it's through the pain oftentimes of looking at that data that's not moving and you being like, I'm trying to create better content, or my social media manager is doing her best, I think, and we're just not moving the needle. Well, that pain of looking at that metric is going to probably push you to either, learn more about how a social platform works, or maybe hire someone for a consultation and get some key information on growth and what content is working or not working or whatever. But it all stems from understanding if what you're doing is working or not working. And I think in the past, it used to be enough to just get it out. I think there was a term that was pretty common, maybe like 3 years ago. It's like getting the content train, right? You just got to get on the content train. And if you keep putting yourself out there and keep adding value and blah, 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 that your social will grow and lead lists will grow, whatever. But the reality is we're in a much, much more competitive space now. Like platforms like TikTok are more mature now than they were in 2020 and 2021, right? Algorithms are much more sophisticated on all of the platforms. And what that means, and by the way, content creators and brands are much more sophisticated than they were before. And so the competitive landscape is tougher. And that means that we need to be better. But instead of just mindlessly getting stressed out, right? Trying to learn everything, what watching the data does, identifying kind of the key pieces of data that are going to move your business forward, 3 metrics, right? That the example that I gave is a great place to start if you're looking at an organic social media strategy, and just watching those very closely. And I love this. I really think it's important to set targets for your data, but many of us are not ready to set targets unless you've been tracking your data regularly for months or weeks, right? And you can see kind of a little bit of a pattern of where your starting point is. Then you're going to want to look at some benchmarks for your industry and try on your first level to hit some of those benchmarks. And there's so much information you can get on Google. Honestly, you can be like, I'm a commercial roofing company, and I'm trying to create a TikTok following. What is the average impression on TikTok for a B2B construction company? That information you can find, right? If you're a product-based company, it's like, what's that average conversion rate from people that land onto the website to actually leaving your email address and getting your free resource or getting your discount? That benchmark exists. And the first kind of target you could be working towards is those minimal benchmarks, right? And that's going to give you some direction to go in. And again, if you can't figure it out yourself, that's fine, because like a lot of us, especially as founders and as marketers, right? There's so many pieces of marketing, right? There's SEO, website, email, like social. There's so many pieces of it. Unless you are a marketer that is just focused on one specific tactic, like you're just a copywriter and that's all you do all day. Well, if you're running your own business, you're going to have to know all of these other pieces as well, right? And it's very difficult to be an expert in all of these things. Me as a marketing director and as a chief marketing officer, by no means am I an expert in running ads myself and doing SEO myself. And no, I just understand enough to be dangerous, so to speak, and how to hire the right people, because I can identify what success looks like, and oftentimes that's through benchmarks, and then I bring in specific experts to help me. But in the case where I can't afford to bring in an expert, right? Like in my own business, if I don't want to invest in, I'm show up on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my main social media platform that I love. And a couple months ago, I was like, you know what? I would really love to grow my LinkedIn. I had never really focused on growth there. And I realized that I didn't have the tools in my toolbox to know exactly what to do to grow my personal, right? And so I I bought books. I bought people's courses. Like, I learned how to optimize my profile. I learned what are some behind the scenes strategies I can do to start making more connections with the right people. I started getting curious about how I could be more efficient with my time, how I could do better. And that's the journey that we're all on. But in order for me to get there, I was like, hey, it would be really cool to get to 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. And, like, that was just the desire. So I put that into my weekly data. That was the number that I was watching. I felt like that was gonna be one of my most important metrics. And so I started looking at, all right, these are the targets I want to get to each month if I'm going to reach 10,000 followers by a year from now, for example. And I wasn't getting there and I was frustrated. I was like, what am I doing wrong? What could I be doing better to help this be more consistent, get more consistent production out of this? And that pain of looking at that number is what sparked me to pick up Gary Vee's book. And from Gary Vee's book, his newest book about day trading attention, which I recommend to everyone. His book sparked me to talk to a consultant, actually sparked me to hire someone, an hour of their time to just give me some advice on my profile and help me to clean things up. It set me on this path. And it wasn't like, oh, I have to hire a full-time LinkedIn manager in order to grow. No, I had to learn like what success looks like, what are the necessary actions that I need to take. Now that I've been on a right path and I'm very comfortable understanding what needs to happen for growth or whatever, and I've done things manually myself, now I know enough to be able to, if I wanted, and I haven't at this point, hire like a virtual assistant to take it over for me because I know exactly what needs to do, what needs to happen. What I see a huge mistake for so many founders is just like not fully understanding the data, like really digesting it, really like understanding it in a deep way, and just expecting to just hire people out to fix the problems for you when you yourself don't fully understand um, that piece of the marketing. Like you just don't understand what success looks like. You don't understand what growth looks like. You don't understand like the necessary actions that someone should take in order to get the results that you want. You just don't have any idea. You just want someone else to fix the problem for you. And honestly, that is not a very productive way to run your business and grow your business when it comes to marketing. Because with marketing, things are always changing. You need to be engaged as a founder because there's a lot of times you'll hire people. There's a ton of people out there that, with all of my love, don't really know what they're doing. I've been in a lot of situations where I've hired like young people as social media managers because I'm like, they love TikTok. They're on it all the time. They can get amazing results. And I didn't myself understood what growth and success looked like. I didn't understand what the benchmarks are and what realistic growth could look like. And so therefore, I've been in a situation where I've hired people and wasted money and they just weren't doing a great job and I had no idea. But that was on me. That was totally on me because I needed to spend the time to understand enough to be able to lead someone to success. Because as business owners, we're in this kind of like growth phase. We want to grow, we want to expand a team. We oftentimes cannot afford to get a marketing director or chief marketing officer in our businesses. As a fractional CMO, people, yes, they hire me to set up everything for them. But let me tell you, the most successful founders that I've ever worked with, and I tell you, I've worked with incredibly successful individuals. The most successful founders that I've worked with understand marketing and sales in their business. Yes, I was there to lend my strategic ideas, to grow the team, to lead the team, to kind of take things off their plate, but they understood what growth meant in their business. And that is something that you cannot give away to anyone. No marketing director, no fractional executive, no one. Like it's your responsibility as a founder to know what sales and growth and marketing is all about. These are the key pieces of your business. And if you don't understand that, then you're not going to have much success in those areas. Or you need to have a strategic partner that knows those things. Like I do realize that there's some hyper creative people that are just brilliant at design or whatever, or they're just incredible in that small piece that they do. But then you need someone that's that's invested in your business, like an equity partner or whatever, that's going to care immensely about understanding sales and marketing. I think it's such an important piece of your business that you cannot just be giving that away to someone you met on Fiverr, that's your social media manager or whatever, and expecting them to like figure everything out about how to sell and how to market your business. It's just not realistic. But for me, those core lessons were all really learned through getting intimate with the data and just understanding the results that I'm getting, or when I'm working with clients, the results that they're currently getting, understanding where I want to be, what success could look like. And then sometimes painfully, well, most times painfully, figuring out what is the path to success. And that's the process of iteration and improvement, right? That's the most important thing as a founder, as a leader, that you need to be paying attention to, which is, all right, let's get the all of the basics down of the marketing strategy, right? But oftentimes a lot of us, like, we can get very far with just like having the basics, right? I've got a website, I've got like a lead magnet, I've got some emails going out each week. But just because we have that bare minimum going out does not mean that it's performing in the way that we hope. It doesn't mean that it's actually getting us to the revenue. Just because we have it doesn't mean that it's working. And the way that we understand whether something's working or not working is because we are looking at the numbers, we're looking at the results, and we're realizing what those results mean for us. We're realizing whether those results are good enough for what we want to accomplish or not. And if it's not, then we need to get on that journey to figure out how we're going to get those results that we want. So if you are feeling like completely lost and you're like, I don't even know what numbers I should be tracking, what you're saying makes no sense to me, send me a DM. I would love to have you on the show, walk through building a marketing scorecard for you live on the show. Just send me a DM. I'm Victoria Hajar, Hajjar. My company is Ugly Ventures, so ugly with an I, UGLIVENTURES. And I would love to help you, because I think that this is one of those make or break things. You know, when you've set up your business and you have like a good handle of the things that need to happen, and you want to grow and you want to do better and you want to build a team, right? You want to get some things off your plate. You want to start scaling up some of your revenue. The numbers, you need to understand them. And it's not about just pulling every single number and aggregating every single number from all of the platforms. It's being able to discern between the 2, 3, 4 key metrics that you should be really focused on, that's going to make the biggest difference in your business to start. That's where I want everyone to start. So send me a DM. And if you want to dig into some other free resources that I have, I've got great free guides on how to build your brand communication strategy, how to build out your marketing growth strategy. You can grab those at uglyventures.com, UGLIVENTURES.com/resources. Okay, uglyventures.com/resources. So I hope you dig into all of those. If you've liked this episode, if you've found some value in it, it would make me just over the moon happy if you like the podcast, share, leave a review. I'm on all of the platforms. It's the Scalable Marketing Machine podcast. Or if you're watching this on LinkedIn Live, send me a comment, share this. I would so appreciate it. Thank you for joining me this week, and I'll see you back here next week for the Scalable Marketing Machine podcast.